Hi everyone, I'm Sheryl Gottschall and I'm here today with James Gilliland, who's visiting Australia from the USA. Welcome, James.
Oh, good day, mates. Good to be in Australia.
James is well known for all the unusual activity, UFO activity and otherwise, that occurs at his ranch, East Eddy Ranch at Mount Adams. But you've actually had experiences since you were a child, haven't you?
Yeah, I started very young.
Yeah.
It's funny because my brother did some hypnotherapy with actually Mary Rodwell when she was at the ranch, and we both knew we had been taken on the ships and had a lot of experiences, and so I already knew who they were and what it was about, but he was curious, and so he went and had the regressions, and so I asked him, I said, well, how did it come out? And he said, yeah, we were definitely taken, we had experiences, and he said, but it was, I go, well, who were they? And he said, it was benevolent, it wasn't negative, it was a positive experience. And so even as a little kid, I used to go on to my mom and I'd say, Mom, they took me, and she goes, a bad dream, go back,
Okay.
go back to bed.
Yeah.
So.
Did your parents ever have any unusual experiences?
Yeah, my mom denies her background. I mean, she's part Cherokee, and my grandmother was, I think, half Cherokee, but very tuned in. My mom had a lot of psychic abilities and things like that, but she totally denied her heritage and that background because it wasn't fashionable in her time. So my dad was involved in Roswell, and my grandfather owned the hardware store there, and he sold a lot of the equipment to the Swenson Ranch and farm equipment and things, and so they're very involved with it. My grandmother was very good friends with the sheriffs, the first responders, and they came to him right after the event. She was having coffee with them, and she was like the matriarch. She was the school teacher, and everybody knew her, and it was kind of funny because they went to her and said, Elizabeth, we're not alone, and they had a coffee cup, and they were going like this. They could not hold a coffee cup. They were shaking so bad. And she said they were still like white, like it freaked them out so bad. And so they had a conversation with her, and she said, of course we're not alone. It's a big universe out there, So she was very open-minded as well. But my dad actually had a ship land on the highway, and I've never heard an account of this, but my dad never embellishes anything. He doesn't talk about it at all. My dad was like a Buddha, he was like a living Buddha. He lived it, but he didn't talk it, he was just always there, very tapped in. And there was a ship that landed on the highway, and there was a bread truck in front of him, and he was the second car up on it. And the guy in the bread truck ran back and he said, do you have a gun? Do you have a gun? And my dad said, I don't think a gun's appropriate here. He said, we're out of our league. We might want to just chill out, and settle down. And so, and then it took off, and then the traffic started up again. But I think it's odd that I would love to get confirmation on that, but I haven't been able to. But in New Mexico, there's all kinds of things going on that they hushed up, and with deadly force too, and things like that. So there's a lot of activity. And when we were kids, my dad would pull over. He said, get out of the car, and we'd get out of the car, and he'd point up, and there'd be like 5 ships, light ships, coming right over the car. So we've always, we were raised in the high desert in Apple Valley, California, where the Integratron and all that other stuff is going on. And Ralph Ring and Otis Carr actually built a UFO out there, and the feds came in and shut them down.
Really?
But yeah, there's always been a lot of activity. We'd throw our sleeping bags out on the lawn at night and we'd watch the sky, and there's things doing zigzag patterns, stopping, getting really big, coming down, like powering up, and then just taking off. And we don't have anything that could do that. And so my brother and I used to watch these things all the time.
So you've said as a child that you would be taken away and tutored by these beings.
Yeah.
What were you being taught?
Well, it was kind of interesting because they taught me a lot on how to deal with humanity, because I was very sensitive, and I would hear one thing, people would say something else and feel something totally different, so people would think one thing, say one thing, and feel differently, and I got all the input at once, and so I was really just having trouble with that. And they would talk to me, and they would talk to me why people do what they do, like they would cover past life things, and I was having trouble with my mom, and then they explained to me why it went back to a lifetime in Greece, and there was some unfinished business there, and they would explain that to me. And so they helped me depersonalize things and understand just being here on the earth.
Mm. And that it maybe help integrate you a bit
Yeah,
more too?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Now, at age 5, you developed pneumonia and you
Yeah.
weren't actually expected to live.
Hmm.
And you were taken to hospital. And here you tell the story about a being, a female being,
Yeah.
who came and helped you and then eventually gave you something to help you
Yeah,
too. Tell us
yeah.
about that.
Well, at 5, I didn't know who she was, and all the nurses wore green in the hospital. They had green outfits, and this woman kept appearing to me in blue, and she would just appear in a field, and all of a sudden she'd step out of the field, and she would talk to me and stroke my head and talk to me, and the doctors would tell my parents they didn't think I was going to make it through the night. You know, my parents kept coming down, and every time she appeared to me, I got better. You know, I got better each time. And then finally, the last visit, she actually gave me a substance and told me to eat it. And it was like the consistency of ice cream, but it wasn't cold.
Mm.
And I think I know what that is right now, working with these German biophysicists and things. I think it was crystallized oxygen.
Oh, really?
Because, you know, that just boosts your immune system off the scale, and it backs everything at cancer, everything out of your system. So I believe it was some form of that she gave me, and then I was never sick after that. I didn't miss a day of school. I found out later it was Mother Mary, but I'm not Catholic. You know, I'm not a religious person, and she is a universal being, and she really takes care of the children and appears to the children. So, yeah. So I have a deep respect for the divine feminine and Mother Mary, because I wouldn't be here right now
Yeah.
if it wasn't for them.
Yeah. Your story really interests me because you've had close encounters.
Yeah.
You've had a couple of near-death experiences, another one we'll talk about in a minute. But so I find people are coming to me now, and there have been over the last few years more and more, who are reporting both types of experiences. What do you think the connection is with certain people having these experiences, particularly the contact and the near-death?
Yeah. I'll tell you a quick little story which will tie it all together. When my father died, we were with him, and his last words were, "Beam me up." And so I said, why would my dad say, "Beam me up," like this, you know? So I went outside, and I took a few photographs, and I got this beautiful turquoise light ship right over the house. And it was from the Orion Council of Light, and he was part of that. And he actually incarnated from there. So heaven isn't exactly what we've been told. It has many dimensions to it, many different levels of consciousness and energy and technology, and it's far beyond what we can imagination. We don't get a harp and a cloud, you know, and a condo with a jacuzzi. You know, if we pay enough money, it doesn't work that way.
Is it even heaven though? Or is it just another realm?
Just another realm. Yeah, when you cross over, your consciousness magnetizes you to the realm that matches your frequency. So if you're a really negative, dark person, you're going to go to a very low level. That's just the way it works. But there is a burn. There's a lot of forgiveness and things that gets you released from that'll actually go higher than you've earned, you know, in a way. But what I've seen in the mid levels, it's everyday, you know, Joe Blow or whatever with Joe's Garage, you know, and they're on the wheel and they're getting ready to reincarnate again. And you can contact Joe, you know, and Joe could probably help you fix your car, you know, if you own Joe's Garage. But he's not going to help you with the higher spiritual matters, because he can only talk from the level of his understanding. So we have a saying, just because you're dead doesn't mean you're enlightened, you know, and also just because you're an ET doesn't mean you're benevolent. So we teach the tools of discernment there and how to heal unseen negative influences and make sure the beings that you work with are of a benevolent nature and are in service mode to humanity and the earth.
So let's talk about that other near-death experience. What was it, when you were age 25, you had a drowning?
Yeah, I had a drowning, and I was out body surfing, and the waves went from about 6 to 8 foot waves to about 27 foot waves. And in the movie Contact Has Begun, the researchers there, they went back and they got the clippings from the newspaper of what happened in there to check and see if I was telling the truth and things. But it was really interesting. But the first wave just when I saw it coming, I tried to get under it, and the water kept going out, and next thing you know, I was in ankle deep water, like running, trying to get under the wave, and it crashed right on me. And so it hit me like a fly. It just swatted me and collapsed my diaphragm, and it dislocated my shoulder when it hit me. And then I finally came up out of that, and I still couldn't breathe because it hit me so hard. And then the next wave hit me. And after the third wave, I just gave up, and I went through the tunnel everybody talks about. But in my training, I didn't stop because I had a lot of training on the inner level and past lives and things. I didn't stop to talk. I didn't stop on any of the other levels. I went right into this golden plane of bliss is where I ended up. And then I had a conversation with, it's hard to explain because you're unique yet you're one at the same time. So you're a light being, but there's a greater being around you, a greater conscious energy around you, and you're having a conversation with it while you're there.
So you didn't actually see anything, you were just interacting with something?
Yeah, all you're doing, you're feeling extreme bliss, just pure love and joy and bliss, and there's a communication that's going back and forth with this higher conscious and energy, and the energy is transferred when you're talking with it because you're just going, whoa, you're feeling the energy. And you know, the first thing I asked was, how can I stay? Because I was just so blissed out, and it came back to me and it said, I never told one of my children when to come or go. That's free will, you know. So the next thing I asked was, how can I earn the right to stay? And it told me you can't earn what is given freely and unconditionally, you know. And so I'm going, wait a second, this isn't the God I was told about, you know, with the lightning bolt and the laptop taking notes and all the other stuff.
Getting out the book of what
yeah,
you've done and not
exactly,
done.
yeah. It's a pretty big book. But it was interesting, but the last thing I said was, how can I serve? You know, what can I, because you want to just give back. And there's no answer for quite a while. And I was just held in that cradle of bliss, they call it, in the arms of Source, or whatever name you want to give it. And then finally it came back to me and says, what do you want to do? What brings you joy? And I thought about it, I said, I want to come back and teach people about the true nature of Source or God, that it's not this wrathful deity, you know, with a lightning bolt and laptop taking notes. It can't judge. It's like the sun. It shines evenly on everybody, and it doesn't have an ego. It's beyond that. And so the other images are just control images. They're man projecting his image on God, you know, and trying to create it like that. So but there are lesser gods, you know. Than the Source. There's levels where there are fully realized God beings that can appear as an image, you know. But most of them are just light, you know. They're pure consciousness and energy. You said in an interview I watched that beings showed up after you'd had an NDE. Why do you think it happened then? It's kind of like most UFO researchers start out and they see something, they see a ship or whatever, and so they go around and try to prove that is real, and they try to get the nuts and bolts together. I went the opposite way. I came from the top. I know they're real. I've already hung out with the ultra-dimensionals and the other beings and the masters and everything, and now I'm bringing that energy down to the physical. And we have the physical nuts and bolts as well, because those ships are appearing at the ranch as well, but we have the full spectrum. So it's no longer do they exist, it's who are they, why are they here, what is their culture, and are they service-oriented, are they self-serving, you know, what is their agenda. And so we've gone far beyond the nuts and bolts and into the higher knowledge, which is a real threat to the UFO community, unfortunately.
Well, you know, just those three questions, who are they, where are they from, why are they here, they come up a lot. But do you find over time that has sort of, if you turn it back on or you have turned it back on yourself, like, who am I, why am I here, and you know, where am I from, you know? Yeah,
I'm the chosen one. No, that's unfortunate. There's a lot of people running around saying I'm the chosen one, or I'm the Messiah, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, the chosen ones are those who chose. It's that simple. Whoever chooses to go that path, eventually they're going to create that reality. So we're all creating our own realities down here, and there's 7 billion people creating realities and collective consciousness as well. But it's kind of it's sad because the UFO field is filled with a lot of people that are still, you know, in that separation game, and they believe that they are, the chosen one, and they are the UFO Messiah, and they're kind of strutting around saying, "See me, dig me," and they're creating everything external, which is a real trap because it's an internal experience. And so, if you want to go interdimensional, you have to go internal to really understand, because it is a multidimensional experience. And if you talk to Einstein or Michio Kaku or any of the major people that understand physics, Einstein says there's worlds just outside of our perception that we can't see. And Michio Kaku says we should be looking for UFOs in other dimensions, not just here. And so they're onto it. They understand, the multidimensional reality of ufology. And what I do in my talks is I tie everything together. I tie the nature kingdom, the masters, the UFOs, the religions, and the origins of man, and the interference, and both good and negative, and I cover all of that and put it together. And also too, it's a very empowering talk. Everything I do is to empower the individual to make their own contact, to make their own personal connection with Source. Because I make it very clearly it's not about me. If you're focusing on me, I'm a distraction. I'm supposed to give you information that's going to bend you inward, to make your own connections.
Now, I know you've spoken of another experience you've had where a being showed up in your hotel room.
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
Well, it was actually, she showed up twice, and it was during the Joshua Tree event, Contact in the Desert, which is coming up, I think, in May. And I was sitting there in my room, and I was kind of meditating. I was taking a little power nap to charge up for the day. And all of a sudden I look up and I see this being, and she's like 8'3", and very tall, appearing in my room. And she's like goddess energy. Looked kind of almost like an ancient pharaoh type with a headdress, and just very beautiful, very tall. And her name was Enha, and she's actually a ninth dimensional being, and she's part of the Council of 12, the benevolent side of the Anunnaki that didn't fall. And she was appearing, and she was telling me, we're here to right a wrong. We're here to undo the past and what happened in the past, and to free up humanity to go forward in their evolution and get away, or clear up the constraints that have been put on us, and all the other nonsense that's happened here. So it was a very beautiful experience, and she's appeared to me a couple times since then.
Now, you've when that happened, what did she tell you? What happened? Don't keep us hanging.
Yeah. She just appeared. When I just looked at her and I just went, oh my God, it's like she was so beautiful and so powerful, and just love emitting from her. But it was a powerful love. It was like really strong, and all I could say was like, yes, ma'am, to her, because of the energy that was coming from her. But she just started kind of talking to me telepathically and said, we're here, we've returned, we're with others. And and they told me that they're working with the Pleiadians, the Orion Council of Light, the Andromedans and Arcturians, and they're bringing with them the Syrians, which are these massive lion beings that used to work with us in the past. I know that's quite a stretch for some people, but if you do the research, you'll find Sekhmet was one of those beings. She's 14 feet tall, and beautiful beings, and they were the protectors of the gods and the gods of the Anunnaki. So we got the image of the bearded god from the Anunnaki. And every religion has the image of a bearded god, and it comes from the Anunnaki and the way they behaved while here on Earth. And so that's why the religions are different. And they actually moved from there to Greece and became the Greek gods as well. So that's where we have the bearded Greek gods. The same thing. It's the same group. And so we need to really understand our history and what really happened in the past, because some of the Anunnaki were very benevolent and they're very service-oriented, like Enki. He was the creator god. He was a geneticist and worked with us. And some were very jealous and wrathful, like Enlil, and he wanted to see us gone. So he wanted the experiment over, So we have this image of this all-loving, all-forgiving God on one hand, and this jealous, wrathful God on the other hand. Where does that come from? And they're not God. They're God beings, they're very highly evolved beings, but who created them? We have to go beyond that.
You mentioned before briefly about the Orion Council of Light. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I've had a lot of encounters with them, and I'm very connected to that group. And they are the same ancestors. The Pleiadians and the Orion Council of Light share the same ancestors as ancient Lyra, which are the ancient Lyrians, which are actually the root race, and it's where the Anunnaki came from. Everybody thinks they came from Nibiru. That's just a satellite, you know. It's not where their origins really came from. So the very tall beings, you know, some of them are 24-foot tall beings in the ancient past, came from ancient Lyra, and they moved out to the Pleiades, the Orion, and the Hades system, and they went on smaller planets, and their bodies adjusted to the planets, and then through the years, and then they came to Earth, Mars, and Maldek. Maldek's the asteroid belt now. It blew up because of misuse of technology and things. And Mars lost its atmosphere, and that was once inhabited too as well. And then the Earth was on the other side of the sun, so it did okay. You know, it didn't have as much damage as the other ones. But they're very beautiful beings. They went through the wars, the reptilian wars, and with the reptilians and greys, and they're tempered. It's like a lot of the Pleiadians are very giddy. They're very high energy, very loving, very giddy. But a lot of them are very naive. They don't know how to deal with negativity or darkness. They don't even, it's not even part of the reality. And so there's images of that I don't want to go into because it all sounds being blonde, I can say that. But you know, it's interesting. But the Orion people are more very down to earth, and they recognize the darkness, and they're here to deal with it. And they know how to deal with it, so they're very good allies. And they have craft. Actually, they're circling the planet right now. They're massive craft. And they're monitoring the energy fields of the Earth and the grids, and they're making sure they don't get too out of balance, because some chaos is good. We need that for evolution. But if there's too much chaos, you can go into World War III, you know. So they're monitoring the grids and making sure that we're on just such a rapid evolutionary cycle right now that we need people to kind of monitor the grids and make sure that things don't get too crazy.
You now teach workshops on self-mastery and also the true nature of Source. What is that in your understanding? What is the true nature of Source?
The true nature of Source to me is that it's more of a consciousness and an energy and a light, and it's just pure unconditional love and joy and bliss in its most unlimited state. There's the void beyond that, where it's just nothing happening. I've been there. I went to the void and I go, no wonder God creates. You know, there's nothing going on here. I mean, all potential is there, but it's the void.
Yes,
you know, so anyway, so that's my understanding of it. It's not male, it's not female, it's both, and even beyond that. And it's just pure conscious and energy. I love when I came back into my body, the last words I heard were "as you wish," because I said I want to come back and teach people. And I hear "as you wish," next thing you know I'm in my body again, and they're pulling me out. The lifeguards are pulling me out. And what's funny is that's its favorite words. It says "as you wish," you know. So if we're running around the planet going, you know, people are assholes, I can't believe this place, it sucks and everything, you know, the Source is going, as you wish. And that's what we're creating, you know. If we're focusing more on love and joy and bliss and working in harmony with each other and nature, then the same thing happens, you know. But I want to interject in there are other beings that, even though you're in love and joy and bliss and harmony, there are other beings out there that have their truth, and that they are acting out that truth, which may not correspond with yours, you know. So we have to, and that's what the Orion Council of Light learned in their experience, because they had what happened is, in that lifetime, which is another story, they actually returned all of my lives, my memories of my past lives and everything to me. One was on Orion, and I was like a monk. I was living out in the forest, and I had a little gathering, a group, just like I do now. And I came in and spoke before the council, and I had visions of these reptilian beings coming. And I saw the future and saw what was going to happen, and I warned them and told them, we have to gear up. And the council was saying, no, you know, if we prepare for war, we're going to create war. and we're not a threat to them if we gear up, and we're going to be a threat, and they're not going to. We don't have. We're not a threat to them, so they're not going to bother us. That's kind of what their mindset was, and so they did. Their decision was not to gear up, for this. Well, luckily there was a lot of people there at that meeting, and they went back and said gear up. They went against the council, and they did come. They did come, and they wasted one of the major places there in Orion, and but luckily the ships did get launched, and were armed when they got up there, and their technology was far superior as far as the ships and everything, so they fought them off and beat them back. But it's kind of like, and that's where they're coming from, is that they once were very, highly evolved, very loving, very peaceful, and very artistic, very, and really highly evolved scientifically as well. And then they got hammered, by the reptilians, and then so now they have a more balanced look at life, and I think they're more powerful because of that, because now they have that wisdom under their belt and they know how to deal with it. Whereas other groups that have never had that experience don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to experience. And it's almost like incarnating here. You actually become more powerful after you incarnate here, because you understand emotions and free will, and this is a plane of demonstration, and it's an evolutionary step. You have to go through this process and then back to the source, or you can't create anything. You're just a robot, like an angelic beings are just basically robots. They do what they're told. But when you get into the archangels, which are actually Andromedans, they're mythological called archangels, they already went through the whole system and back. And so they're very, very powerful beings.
I'm guessing that voice that said to you, "As you wish," was the reason why you created the As You Wish radio?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It
and
is.
you do that every week, do you?
Yeah, every Saturday night at 8.
And it goes
our
on the
time.
internet?
Yeah,
on your channel?
It goes over the internet, and I think they have a few stations that goes over that they broadcast.
Okay. Right. There's a lot of talk about, as we evolve, that there's a shifting for humans, or a shifting of dimensions.
Yeah.
Now, I might be blind, and I haven't seen anything like that happen yet, and I've been hearing this for 30 years, even longer,
Yeah.
So, maybe I'm not on that bus, I don't know. But what's your thoughts on that? Is that, how would we actually even recognise that we've shifted a dimension?
Well, we are moving to a highly energized place in space, and NASA has, proven this. I actually, when I do my talks, I show the evidence, and we're on this upward spiral, and we're just getting blasted with gamma rays and X-rays and solar impacts from the sun, which is reacting to this as well. So we are definitely on this evolutionary path of acceleration, you might say, and what I see, what people have a hard time understanding, is that when they see all the chaos, they think it's not working, but the chaos means it is working. Because when this energy comes in, it's pushing everything up that has to be looked at and healed. And there's so much chaos going right now, and everything's becoming transparent. Nothing's hidden, and it's getting so obvious right now. That's part of the process. And a lot of people go, "I don't want to be here anymore. I mean, this place sucks. It's just gotten so ugly." And I go, "No, it's always been ugly. It's just all on the surface right now for you to look at." And so it's good news, because it's like a soup. You turn the burner on, and the soup starts going up, and all the dross and stuff on the top, and you skim it off, and you have a really good soup. And that's kind of the way it's working. But we are definitely going into another frequency, and we're evolving into that direction, you might say, which may be moving into the fourth and eventually into the fifth dimension. But things are becoming less dense physical, and the physical body is actually going through DNA changes as well through this process. So one of the big kickers is we're becoming more telepathic. And so you just know when somebody's calling, or somebody's showing up, or somebody's thinking about you and things like that. That's one of the DNA lines that are opening up with this energy. Another one is your dreams. You start seeing forward or backward in time, and you start having all these past life dreams and future dreams of events and things like that. That's another DNA line that's opening up. The ability to actually bilocate and things like that is another line. And one of the lines is actually a salamander gene. When that kicks on, the body will heal itself, and you can actually grow a new arm. But as that energy starts coming in, we're able to heal much quicker and much faster, and have more control over our physical bodies. So that's all well documented. Those things are happening right now, but all of that's going to increase and intensify.
Now, just shifting to the sort of the work that you do, or the experiences you have at your ranch, and a lot of people can come and visit you and see things in the sky pretty much every night if they want to. But there's also, and there's people practicing what's known as CE5 protocols, right? Certain protocols that they feel they need to follow to be able to see extraterrestrials, right? And some years ago, I think it was in the early 90s, we had a sky watch, and there were people from South America who came, and they believed that you had to be a vegetarian, and you couldn't drink, and you couldn't even have sex unless you went on a sky watch to make contact. So what are your thoughts on these so-called protocols when you can just walk out and see them at your place?
Well, some things help, but just what I found out is that at the ranch there, what's interesting is it's still happening. It's never stopped, and it's just increasing. So when the debunkers start throwing rocks at us, and they always do, saying, "Oh, it's all bullshit. You didn't, it's all fake and everything else." And I said, well, come see for yourself. Bring your own camera, get your own film, have your own experience, because it's never stopped, So a lot of these groups had an experience, and they write a book, and they keep going, but nothing's going on. In our case, it's still going on. So that's one thing that I like about it. The ranch itself is a vortex, and it's on 2 ley lines, which makes it very easy to have contact and see the ships and everything else. That's another bonus round too. But what I find out is that when you get very regimented and you get kind of militaristic, like some people do, it actually diminishes the contact. And the more you can stay in the heart, and the more you're having fun and joy, that actually creates the contact. Same as Source, what I learned from my experience with the Source when I had the near-death experience is that, the energy, it told me, he said, what do you want to do? What brings you joy? And I realized that's what the Source is. It's love and joy and bliss. Well, the more blissed out you are, the more loving you are, the more in joy. If you have pure intent, an open mind, and a loving heart, you're going to have contact. That's what they're looking for. But if you're really regimented and you have all these fear factors and religious programs and everything else, it's harder and harder to have a contact, because there's no purposeful good in it. It just creates fear, and they don't trespass. They're not going to trespass. So what I find out is get away from the militaristic regimented thing. That's all control patterns. Get away from somebody who's going to tell you how everything is happening, everything's going down, and look at me and I'll tell you what's happening. And go within and have your own personal experience. And one of the lamas I studied with, he said, the reason there's so few enlightened beings on this planet is because it's so damn simple. And he said, you just focus on love and joy and bliss until you become it. Get out in nature. When you expand in consciousness, you're going to have contact. They'll find you. Your energy is going to draw that experience. And so you're going to go into your own multidimensional self, and you're going to have contact all along the way back to the Source.
So under that circumstance, why do they make contact with us?
Well, basically, it depends on who's making contact, because one, on the big picture, they think a civilization and a planet is a terrible thing to waste, and we're fast tracking in that direction, and they want to kind of divert that, and so we can go in a different direction. And we've been totally interfered with. That's why we are going in that direction. So they want to remove the interference. And it's like in the Palladians' case, they have more genetic stock here than any other group. And they brought their animal life, plant life, and their own genetics here to the planet. And other groups joined them. They started the original Atlantis and Lemuria colonies. Before that, the Anunnaki came here, and they found a knuckle dragger that was evolving naturally here, and jumped his DNA up, with their genes to mine gold, so they could both ingest it and save their planet, and which didn't work, and saving the planet part didn't work, like Nibiru got kind of toasted. It didn't work out too well. And so they all had different programs in coming here, and again, they kept splitting off into factions and then going to war with each other, and we have a long history of that. And so, you know, hopefully with the help that's coming in now, we won't do that. But if you look at Atlantis and Lemuria, you had the sons of Belial, and then you had the law of one, you know. And the sons of Belial went into technology. They worshiped technology and using technology to overpower others and maintain control, and that was their god. You know, technology was their god. In Mu or Lemuria, they saw the creator in all creation. You know, they were family oriented. They loved the earth, and they felt nature was the path. And so they split, you know, and then they also had the Atlanteans also, I mean, the Lemurians had high technology too. They just had a different mindset. And then actually the Atlanteans turned on and brought their beam ships in, and just, you know, the Gobi Desert, that big green shelf of sand there underneath Gobi, that used to be an old part of the Lemurian colony that they melted down, you know. So it's a real mess in the past. And if you look at what we're doing right now, we have the same thing. You know, you've got the NSA, and you've got all these guys, and with all their technology, and they're totally spying on everybody, trying to dominate, control everybody. They've got psychotronics, HARP. They have all these crazy technologies, even satellite technology that they're using to manipulate the masses. And it's the same thing going on right now. And then you have the other people that are saying, hey, let's help those less fortunate, let's bring everybody up together, and they're more service oriented. And so we have the same, it used to be the Republicans and the Democrats, but now we have the Republicrats, which they've all merged into one big corporate entity. And so that's gone, you know, so we don't even have the two sides anymore.
People who report having near-death experiences and close encounters, even sightings, they can often undergo deep transformation in their lives. And I'm assuming you went through some of that yourself. But what is it that actually got transformed?
Well, as a kid, I got indoctrinated into social consciousness, you know, and I went into school and high school, college, and everything else, and everything was external. You know, everything was external. No support for the internal whatsoever in that process. And so I fell, basically. I got away from the other connections I had as a child. When I had the drowning, all that was restored. And so the ability to sense what somebody thought, what they felt, and what they were saying was all coming in again. I became extremely sensitive. I started seeing beings appearing to me, having contacts and everything else after the near-death experience. So it opened the gates again to what I already knew as a child.
That's interesting.
That's the best way I can explain.
Easy. Very Keep it simple, people. Right. So people who report close encounters often feel like they're going crazy. They're going insane. Please give me a pill and it'll go away, you know. And and they're having a battle within themselves, with their own mind, you know, because what they're experiencing just isn't logical to them. To me, and you may have a perspective on this, is that perhaps it's like almost like an initiation process.
It is.
That you see people are sort of called by the spirits, and the whole life is disassembled, and they have to rebuild it.
Yeah.
You know, have you gone through that, and have you seen other people go through that?
Oh yeah, I definitely went through that myself, because when it happened to me, I was in commercial real estate, and I had my own office and people working for me and everything else. I was very left-brained, you know, at the time, and then I had the near-death experience, and everything changed. And I couldn't live in that world anymore. I couldn't function in it. I had to go live in the redwoods for a while to just settle down. But you know, I gave everything away and kept moving, and everything kept coming back to me. It's funny. The more I gave away, the more it came back to me. It's kind of hilarious. But it's definitely a challenge, you know. But the thing about it right now is that what we're governed by right now is what they call the Archon Network, and it's a draconian law, a very heavy, dense program, and it's very separation oriented. It's very conflict oriented. And it's a really mess, and that's why we have the extreme uneven dispersal of wealth, the manufactured lack all the things we're experiencing right now are directly related to that energy and the people that serve that energy. So that whole system is being torn apart right now by the higher dimensional beings, and the Archon network is being cleaned up, which exists of what some would call like demonic type beings, like negative ETs. There's like serpent beings. There's a lot of different types of beings, and they are being cleaned up. And when you move up the hierarchical ladder of power and wealth, the higher you go up the ladder, the darker it gets, unfortunately, and that's the way it is right now. And these other people, even especially a lot of politicians, you know, go to places like Bohemian Grove, and they do all these ceremonies and sacrifices and things like that, and that's all true. What it's now being revealed, and they hook up with the Dark Lord, you know, and these dark energies, and they use them for acquiring power and wealth and notoriety and things like that. Well, that's all being torn asunder, and it's being taken down right now, and there's another grid coming in, like more of a fifth dimensional grid, and so we're in the middle of that process. There's a major battle that's been going on for some time. Most of it's finished, but there's just been a huge cleanup on the other levels, and now the puppet masters are being taken out, and their puppets are floundering. So a lot of the groups, the humans that were actually governed by these Archon beings, reptilian beings, and things like that, are having to deal with everyday life without their puppet masters, and they're floundering, they're giving it away, and they're exposing everything they're doing and everything. So we're in the middle of that process right now, and they're going to be taken out too. It's a very 2-year window. All this is going to manifest.
And what about disclosure? It's always a hot topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So are we ready?
Well, the problem is, again, you're giving your power away to an external source. Like everybody's going, the government, when is the government going to tell us what we already know? You know, why do we have to do that? It's a program. And so we have to let go of that old program. I mean, they did a Times CNN poll back in the 80s, and 86% of the people believe that UFOs exist and there's a government cover-up. In Texas, after the mass flyovers that just came over Texas, they did another poll. 99% of the people believe that extraterrestrials exist. You know, we're not alone. So the cover-up's over, and I don't know why they continue with it. They're just, and everybody knows since the 60s we've been lied to. You know, actually over the past 60 years, it's actually 40s, and since the 40s we're being lied to. And so they've been back engineering things. In the 60s, we had the technology to go to the moon and Mars and everything else. And all the whistleblowers now are bringing this out, like Captain K and somebody called Randy Kramer. There's a lot of whistleblowers, Laura Eisenhower, all these people are talking about the colonies on Mars and the moon and things on the backside of the moon. John Lear, you know, so many people, credible people are coming up and talking about this now. And we've known that all along. I've known that for quite a few times. And I know people that actually worked on those projects and back engineered the ships. So I know what's ours, and I know what's not ours. And so we've had you know, NASA's come out, as I said before. We've had triple PhD born engineers and people that worked on these black projects. And when they see the ships at the ranch, they go, "These aren't ours. We don't know." And they really, and one of them say they don't know. They really don't. Because they don't have the pure intent, the open mind, the loving heart to contact these higher dimensional beings. And there's no purposeful good in them contacting these other people, because they will just distort the information or manipulate it or use it for their own self-gain. So it's kind of a catch-22. But they are contacting people that can rise to the occasion. And there are a lot of good people within these established agencies and things like that are stepping forward now and waking up. And so we're in that process of there's the white hats are all stepping forward, and the benevolent Anunnaki are actually working with some of the most powerful people on the planet right now that really have the wealth. You know, the old saying that the golden rule is he who owns the gold makes the rules. Well, the ones that really own the gold are stepping forward for the good of humanity and putting it into the old draconian program, you know, the banksters program and stuff like that. So we're in the middle of that transition.
Because it's easy to look out and see that not happening, like you said before, but change sort of bubbles along underneath, doesn't it? And then one day things just change like that, don't they? Yeah.
Well, it's like the Illuminati are fighting among themselves, you know, and even the secret space programs are saying, hey, we want this out. We want this information out. The planet needs it. You know, they have the technology, as I said, to go back and forth to the Mars and the Moon, you know, like hours, you know, not days or weeks or whatever. And they also have, in the super soldier programs, they have technology. If you have your arms blown off or legs or things, they can put you in this machine in a way, and it's like a copy machine basically. It'll rebuild and restructure your arms and legs and things like that. Well, a lot of them within these programs are really pissed off right now because the military has become the brute squad for the corporations. And all these people go in there for God and country and find out they're just working for the corporations, and they lose arms and legs and things like that. And they're saying, "Hey, these are our comrades here. Like, we want them. They want them to have the same availability to the technology we have." And so there's a lot of camaraderie there that's going on. That they want this information out, and they know that the Earth needs it. We have to get away from fossil fuel and all this other nonsense, and the technology is there to do it. So there's a lot of people that want this information out that are starting to bring it out right now.
And using your own words
Yeah.
about how do we rise to the occasion of ET contact, both as a collective and just for the ordinary person in the street?
It kind of goes back to what the Palladians said. I asked them, why are you here? And they said, to release the past. And I said, can you go more in depth into that? And they said, your past is creating your tomorrow. So all of the old wounds and traumas and grudges and the unhealed programs we're running are creating our tomorrow. And so they're here to assist us in healing that. And that same energy is psychometrized into the land, where there's been great wars and a lot of genocide and things like that. And they're actually cleaning up that energy as well. A beautiful ship from Sirius came over the Dome of the Rock, and it hovered over the Dome of the Rock, and you can see the energy changing in the whole area, and it threw off a huge blast of light, and then it took off. And what they did is the Dome of the Rock and the Wailing Wall, where they had that old religious patriarchal program, just got erased. You know, so then they had Arab Spring right after that. You know, everybody said, screw this, we want freedom, you know. So that they're doing things like that that are helping us to shift and heal. And it's all about releasing the past, doing our own healing, you know, process the old wounds and traumas and wrong conclusions, because it's very simple, because every attitude or emotion has a frequency to it. If you're in love and joy and bliss, you're of the highest frequencies. If you're in fear, guilt, unworthiness, and you're running those old programs, religious or patriarchal or whatever, you're in the lower energy cycles, you know. And so the more you let go of the guilt and the fear and the judgment of self and others and all those other things in the separation game, your frequency starts rising. And then as you rise up, you're going to have contact, and you're going to be working with these higher dimensional beings. And it's really all about frequency, and it's all about releasing the past. And, you know, basically that's what it's all about.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so
you're
much.
welcome.
That's really interesting. How do people get to hear more of you on your As You Wish radio, we know?
Oh, yeah.
How do they find you?
Well, you can go to BBS Radio and Station 1, As You Wish. And that's on the internet. That's the easiest way. Or you can go to eceti.org. It's eceti.org. And then we have an Australian outlet here, which is ecetiaustralia.org. And that's the best one. And there's amazing footage on this tour. And Peter and Saul have some great footage on there as well. Before I even came here, of amazing ships flying right over Australia here. So, you know, you've got the long distance one and the local one. You can take your choice.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.